welcome to Betwixt the Shadows, our very first episode.
Episode 1, here we go. How are you guys doing tonight? We've waited a week for this.
Whole
this
week.
has been going on, and we're open, and it's happening.
It is happening.
So I just want everybody to know, since this is our maiden voyage, we're obviously going to hit some snags. We're learning.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a great crew here, but we're all learning curve right now. So we're trying to get some of the Facebook Live going on. Not Facebook. I'm sorry.
Instagram Live.
Instagram Live.
I'm not sure how great the sound or the frame is, so I do recommend heading to YouTube. The link is in both of our bios.
Yes.
If you are doing the Instagram route.
YouTube Live is the place to go. That is the platform. But we do have it on Instagram Live through the Crooked Path as well as through yours.
Yeah, at Rainbow Glitter Star.
All right.
I'm sad that some of the YouTubers missed your Johnny Velvet intro.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're just like being
Good evening, everybody. Oh, my God. Thank you, Jane. You filthy ignorant slut.
We're gonna talk about divination today.
We're going to talk about divination. We're going to start right off the gate, talk about divination. Let's talk about the show first.
Yeah.
And let people know what's going on in the future.
Well, first of all, thank you for watching us instead of the debate. I think that you made the right choice about the two people you're giving your attention to right now.
That's right. But we do want you to vote.
That's true. You should vote. But you should already know who you're voting for.
Yeah, we're not going to get political on you guys, but
just that little segment of it.
So yeah, tonight is our first night of a weekly series called Betwixt the Shadows. And what's going on with that is basically it's a Q&A. It's a place where people can call in with their questions. You've got Renee, who is a great astrologer and tarot reader.
And psychic.
Mm-hmm. And you can come in and ask questions about whatever it is you need to know. Or, have ideas on. Sharing your ideas is also great too, and your thoughts on things. Remember, this is whatever we say is not world fact. It's just how we think and feel about any certain subject. Everybody has their own views on everything, and we're not here to take that away from anyone.
Yeah, we're not looking to invalidate anyone's experiences or even say that we're the authority on the subject, but we do have experience in these realms.
Yeah.
I've been... I got my first tarot deck when I was 10, and I'm 33 on election day, actually. And I've picked up my first book about witchcraft when I was 12. So there's a good amount of experience under my belt. But again, we don't believe that we are the be all end all of information.
Yeah. It's just views. It's views on the occult. What are we doing here? I mean, this is about occult knowledge. What is the occult? That's always a big word for people to swallow. It's a big pill to swallow for a lot of people. Originally, when we opened the shop, it was called the Crooked Path Occult Apothecary, but it got trimmed down. Occult scares a lot of people. The word scares a lot of people. I think that the problem is that they confuse the word occult with the word cult.
Yeah.
Occult. What does it mean? Occult means hidden knowledge. Knowledge that is not in plain view, but is very much there. It's also esoteric knowledge. Mm-hmm. Information about things past or ways that people can get involved in doing certain work. Everything from magical societies to covens to ceremonial magic to witchcraft to Satanism to the Voodoo systems to even some of your New Age movements. This can all fall under the occult, but it is not the word that a lot of people think it is. It's not, and the word occultic does not exist either, by the way. Occult
I've never heard occultic.
A couple people have said that to me in the shop. Is this occultic? And I'm like, no.
Maybe they're thinking of Celtic, and they got it. The wires crossed in their mind. I mean, the occult could even just be you have occult information within you if you do a heavy meditation. You know what I mean? It's just like you said, you can access it, but you have to be looking for the information.
Yeah, but when you're looking for the term, it is just hidden. It's knowledge that's hidden from view. And that's what most people practice. Now you got to think about witchcraft and magical systems. A lot of people had to hide it from view because of persecution reasons, and what society deemed as right or wrong. which isn't very far from what it is today, especially in certain areas. Some people are still raised to believe that to do any of the topics in the occult world is the devil's work or satanic work or dark work or negative work or not following the straight and narrow can be something that people see as occult like, therefore it is a negative thing.
I have a question for you, because when I started practicing witchcraft,
Mm-hmm.
I got huge blowback from my family for that reason. People there's like a misconception about what it is and what you're actually doing. Like there are people even who will come into the store and be like, "Oh, I'm afraid to cast a spell because I've heard you can invite in demons and the devil." And it's like, you're not really going to be inviting anything in unless you're purposefully like conjuring something or you feed something your fear. But I'm curious if you have had, like, how did your family deal with you turning into like the witchy magician you are today?
Okay, that actually is a good question, and we can answer that. Rebecca, who is our amazing photographer that shot all of our promo photos, and she also runs the Goddess Circle here at the store when it is working, and she also has the Goddess Circle still going online for those that are interested. Rebecca asked to briefly explain our backgrounds.
Oh.
So I don't want to. Mine takes way too long, so I'm going to try to bring it back a little bit. But I'm originally from New England. I was raised there. I found witchcraft through one of my best friends, who's no longer with me in my life. He passed away. We started studying things together. Started getting into different aspects of the occult, from witchcraft to ceremonial magic. But it was very, very minimal, because it was, again, this is the early 80s. We didn't have internet. We just had the library. So when I moved to Los Angeles in 1985, within the first 4 years, I found my first coven, which was at Eye of the Cat. And I took it, and I did a year and a day with a group called the DCW, which is the Druidic Craft of the Wise, through an amazing woman named Judith Dufresne. And her then partner in crime was a woman named Renee, who we used to call the Dragon Lady. And then there was also Sterling. And they were the three people that brought me through my first year and a day and my Wickening. After that, I left and moved on with a guy named Guy Richards, who taught more Gardnerian craft. And I went through that same thing again with him, learning his system. By this time in the early 90s, I found myself finding out about the esoteric Order of the Golden Dawn. And I joined the Golden Dawn in the early 90s. And not long after that, by 95, I was working at Pan Pipes, which is a very famous occult shop on the West Coast. It's now owned by Vicky, and she's got an amazing store. It's a beautiful place. It's now Pan's Apothecary. It's definitely part of my lineage as well. We both came through Pan Pipes, and when George Derby was running it, and Greg Besnack, who is also the guy that works here on Sundays. He's a great ceremonial magician. Those two, Greg and George, were my mentors when I was the kid in the shop, sweeping and doing basic stuff for clients. So from there, I moved on to now the end of the 90s. I went to Raven's Flight and met Raven, who became my high priestess, with Griffin. And Raven and Griffin, who was the high priest at the time, ran their coven out of Raven's Flight, which was Wildwood. And I did my time with them and worked in the store as well. And through this whole time, I'm cutting out a lot because we don't have enough time for it.
Right.
But through my time, I learned different systems from like Voodoo and Santeria, learned a bit of the Ifa systems. I have a background in Satanism, ceremonial magic, of course, witchcraft, what I call non-anthropomorphic witchcraft or spellcraft, as well as Wicca. And that's a little bit about who I am.
Nice. So I got my start, as I already mentioned. I got my first tarot deck when I was 10. My eldest brother, his girlfriend brought over her tarot deck and showed my sister and I. and I saved my allowance. I got $2 a week for putting away the silverware. And, and I saved my allowance until Michelle was her name, who showed me the tarot deck. She actually took my sister and I to a New Age shop, and we both got tarot decks. I just got the standard Rider-Waite, what everyone kind of starts with. And shortly after that, my mom, who is intuitive herself, but has never fully embraced it because she's also Catholic, she got really into Art Bell and was listening to Art Bell all the time. And she found a Developing Your Psychic Ability and Intuition class at a community college. And it was ran by a psychic named Carrie Schubert, who I actually just sort of reconnected with. And I was like 11 years old, and my mom asked me if I wanted to take the class. And I was like, yeah, I want to take the class, but she had to get approval from the teacher because I was so young, and you can't really register for community college unless you're 16. So I got approved. My siblings and my mom, we all took the class, and I learned how to channel at like 11 years old. And she had a guided meditation CD that my mom bought, and I would go to bed every night, like basically astral projecting. Like the meditation would take you to the astral plane and then like let you loose to do whatever you want. And so I was I was joining all these Neopets covens, and we were astral projecting in my Neopets groups.
What's Neopets?
It was like Pokemon for online. It was like a bunch of nerdy little kids. It was like basically like you had like these little animals, and you would journey to different worlds, but there were like groups that you could join. And I was joining all the witch groups, and there was like a group that I joined where like people were super into astral projection. And so that's kind of like where I continued that practice. But then at like recess, I would bring my tarot cards, and at sleepovers, I would channel, people's parents or their uncle or whatever. I would just like channel people. And I noticed like my body would feel different if I was channeling someone else. Like I would feel overweight, or I would feel like aches or pains or whatever. And as a little girl, I wasn't really equipped with the maturity to know really what to do with that. It was sort of like a party trick, like a fun, cool thing to do. And then I found a book about Wicca at a used bookstore with my friend Ashra. And I remember it so vividly. Like I don't know how you remember the first time you found a witchcraft book, but it is like I can remember with great detail, like going through the different aisles and then finding the books on Wicca. So I got Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner, and started to, basically practice. I would go to Hot Topic and get my pentacle. I got my sword, like all that. And then on my 13th birthday party, I formed a coven. And so I was like little baby witch running around middle school, just saying like, we're witches, blah, blah, blah. And then I got kicked out of middle school for having weed in my locker. And my mom was already pissed at me about practicing witchcraft, and then the weed like blew things over the top. So I kind of stepped back because I didn't want like the conflict at my home. And then was atheist for a really long time, got married, got addicted to stuff, had a terrible like 20s. And around my Saturn return, when I was about 28, I got clean, I got divorced. I went on a cross-country road trip, a comedy tour actually. And I was doing couch surfers. Like it was the most broke tour ever. And I had a gig in Atlanta that was supposed to be my gas money home, and it fell through. And within my sobriety and, getting divorced, I really, really reconnected with witchcraft and psychic ability. And I didn't feel like I had a choice because I started to have prophetic dreams. So I'm really, really engaging with this stuff again. And when this gig falls through, I decide instead of going to Atlanta, I'm going to go to New Orleans. And I sat up with the street poets and the tarot readers on the street of New Orleans, and I just started doing tarot readings for the general public. And I made enough money to go home. I made more money than I was going to make at my gig. And I just had the best time. And so I went back to Phoenix, traveled a little bit more, decided to move to LA, and I started connecting with other readers on Instagram. And then I started to realize that this was a profession that I could engage with, that I could grow. And it's about 3.5, 4 years later, and I'm a full-time psychic, which it took me about 1.5 years to get there, because you have to build up your client base, and you have to
find somebody that believes in you.
You have to, yeah, and you also you do. Well, and that's where enter Sal and enter the crooked path, because I had been living in Los Angeles for a month when I walked into the first shop, the Crooked Path. And right away, like, you know, we had a mutual friend and I explained that I had been sent to this store. And right away, Sal, you were like, oh, do you read? Oh, do you want a job here? We need readers. Like, okay. And then you're like, do you want to teach here too? And I was like, yes. So it very much felt like, more than anything I had tried to do in my entire life, the career path of psychic and tarot reader and astrologer, like, doors have blown open like nothing I've ever dealt with, which makes me feel like, okay, I'm walking my true path and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Cool. So we got a couple more questions we want to add on to here for you. Rebecca again asks, when you were astral projecting, were you ever fearful you wouldn't return to your body?
I was never fearful that I would return to my body, but we were astral projecting to this like weird battle against light and dark. And so I think I was just like exploring very strange realms where I was kind of like seeking out violence on the astral realm to like fight for good. It was like very bizarre, but I was all over it because I was like a tween and I was like super into all into the supernatural and stuff.
Somebody just also asked, Becca the Red chimes in and wants to know, why did I miss these covens on Neopets?
Oh my gosh. So. They probably are still there. Neopets is still a thing. I looked it up for funsies and it's very much still operational. So.
But what were you asked? You asked me something that I was trying to segue into.
How your parents dealt with you becoming a witch?
I was a fucking weirdo my whole life. I mean, you know, my mom had a rule. As long as I didn't end up dead, in jail, or on really hard drugs, she was okay with how I lived. It was very apparent to people in my circle of life, as well as the society that I lived in, that I was my own person, and you were not going to tell me where I was going to step. I mean, it was a really, I was a very adamant individual, you know, and when I decided something, it just was. And I didn't get scolded or yelled at or hit or any of that stuff. I was never in that type of environment. I was lucky for that. But, you know, I walked my own path pretty quickly in life, and they knew I was a little odd.
Yeah.
You know, I always tell people the story about, you know, me spending all my time in the woods of New England. And when spending my days in New England, I would collect sticks and dirt and rocks and just other little implements, things I could find in the woods. I would take them home, segregate them into their little boxes, separate them up, and slide them under my bed. So when I slept, it made me feel better.
That's so interesting.
That was kind of like, you know, I didn't know what that was, but now I look at it, does that lead into that? Probably. Popey says you need to do a class on channeling, and she's going to sign up.
I would love that.
So that's where I comes from. But as far as my first book, geez. You got to remember, we're talking 70s, you know, so it wasn't like what people had. I mean, I got to meet Scott Cunningham before he passed. So that was late, you know, that was earlier in my occult life, in my witchcraft life, but I'd still been practicing already. To think about books back then that we could find in the library, and we didn't have a Walden's book in New Hampshire. It wasn't like that. You know, there's a couple little bookstores. I would have to say 777 by Aleister Crowley, which I still can't completely grasp. That's going to take me the rest of my life. Everything that was out there on witchcraft back then was always a Christian point of view on what Satanism and witchcraft, you know, that there is a very popular book. But it was never about the work. I would have to say one book that does stick in my mind early on that a lot of people don't talk about, except for actually one of the teachers that I have now brought it up, Jason Miller. I'm in his 7-month Hecate course, which is phenomenal. So you never stop learning. But he brought up this author as well, and it was Paul Hewson, Mastering Witchcraft. It was a really early book, and a lot of it was kind of bunky and a little bit tongue-in-cheek. You could tell it came off the Satanic Bible, but it was like a pagan-esque version. It's still a great book, and I still love it. But it's not. It's one of the lesser knowns out there. And but when you get the book, the first thing it tells you to do is you have to say the Lord's Prayer backwards, and it tells you to do that. And then it talks about how it, clears out any hangups that you have on that.
Oh.
And then he goes in, and it's some of it is kind of silly, but some of it was really great. I mean, there's some really good work on Visaggio, on spirit work in there, divination, herbology, spellcraft, love magic,
Right.
curses, just really down and dirty witchcraft with a smattering of pagan gods.
Okay.
And so it's a pretty known book. It's been out since the 70s. That's probably one of my first ones.
Should we do more questions, or should we talk about divination? How are you feeling?
Well, those aren't even the official questions. These are popping up live.
Yeah.
We can go ahead and why don't we answer a couple of questions?
Yeah.
And then we'll go into discussing divinations.
Okay. I will. There was one thing that I thought of though when you were talking about saying the Lord's Prayer backwards. I remember part of my formative years was getting into arguments with like the religious education teachers, and I remember one time I told the leader of the class that I unbaptized myself, and she was like, "You can't do it," and I was like, "I did it." That's I don't know why it made me think about that. And she was like, "You can't," and I was like, "I did it. I'm not a Catholic anymore. I unbaptized myself in the shower." I was such a pissant. I was always looking for a fight. All right.
I got a question.
Oh, what is it?
Sal, have you ever had any personal experience or a personal experience with the supernatural? That's a really, when people talk to me, they can talk to me about spellcraft, they can talk to me about planetary magic, they can talk to me about ceremonial magic, but when you start talking to me about this type of stuff, I'm not going to give you a big book because people that know me realize that I'm very quickly that I don't put a lot of faith and work into that.
Right.
Doesn't mean I don't think it exists. At this point, I know it does exist. Have I had those experiences? 1 to 2. Both of them, I would say, were with the goddess Hecate. The first one was when my soon-to-be wife came back from Greece with me. We were a bit jet-lagged, and we did some ritual work, and I went to bed. We both went to bed that night, and at about 3 o'clock in the morning, this black mass that was about 7 feet high, and it was about 4 feet wide at its widest point, just locked over my side of the bed and just angled down on me. And I was freaking out. But I realized quickly that it was Hecate, and it was her coming to me. And soon after that experience, that became the genesis of what we now know as the Crooked Path.
But Popey saw it too, though, right? It was like a shared.
I woke her up.
Yeah.
Kind of freaked out. I was like, "Wake up! There's something looking at me." I was like whispering at her, and it was there. We just both froze, and it stayed there for about. It seemed like forever, but in reality, it was probably about maybe 5 to 6 minutes. You know what I mean? But it seemed like forever. So that would be the one experience. The only other one that I've really had that I can really say had an effect on me was, again, through Hecate, doing the Depnon. And the Depnon is the supper, the silent supper we do for Hecate at the dark moon right before it opens into the new. We go out to special crossroads, myself, Popey, Scarlett, and a couple other people. And we go out and we leave our offerings, say our prayers, do our work, and then back out. And one night when we did it, I did my call, and you got to, we're in Southern California, so there's canyons everywhere where we are. We're out in the middle of Cagle Canyon. It's deep. It's deep out in those hills. And it seemed like the best way I could explain it is if you took a 15-foot square piece of black fabric, it just fluttered between the hills all around us.
Whoa.
And then right when it was really getting heavy, all the coyotes and dogs started screaming and screeching in the night. that was really intense. And
That is intense.
those are my two experiences.
Yeah. I feel like I've had Hecate. I mean, I've had like all the supernatural experiences. I've had a bunch of them, but I feel like I've had Hecate come to me too. And she always looks like a really super tall black mass. But one time she came to me when I was like, I had done a spell that I shouldn't have done. It was totally like a love spell, manipulative magic spell, like where I wanted someone. And I was like laying on my couch maybe a week or two later. It was the first time I'd ever tried working with her. Well, except for like to, introduce myself. And then I did a spell for this person. And then I was laying on the couch about half asleep. And I hear a voice say to me, "Do you still want him?" And I said, "Yes." And I felt like my energy was being taken from, like she was taking the energy from me. And I felt like I was deflating. And I exhaled even to the point where I went, like that's how much like energy and breath had been pushed out of me. And it took me like 2 or 3 days to feel like my energy levels had sort of regenerated. And months went by, maybe even like 6 months to 8 months. And I no longer wanted this person. I was in a new relationship, happy. And I kept seeing this weird like black shadow just like around my house. And I'm living with my new partner now, and I'm seeing this weird black shadow just like out the corner of my eye running around. And I was like, there's a goon in my house. Like, what's happening? And then I went to Sedona.
Did you say goon like truffle shuffle?
Like I don't know, like a goon, just like blah, like it was a goon. I don't know how else to explain
Truffle
it. Like
shuffle.
yeah, but like I felt like it was like trying to antagonize me, so I was trying not to engage. I was trying to just like ignore it. And then I went to Sedona, which like for people who know or believe in it, like supposedly it's a vortex, and I've always had the most mystical hikes ever. And I had this really, really mystical hike in Sedona. And I'm walking down the trail, and I just like hear a whisper like off one of the side trails. And it was like, "Come here." Like, just like I felt lured. I wasn't really being spoken to, but I felt lured and I felt pulled. And I walked over to where it was, and I just like didn't necessarily see Hecate, but I knew she was talking to me. And she showed me this goon that had been following me was the energy that she had taken from me. And it was all of my obsession for this person. It was all of my unhealthy attachments for this person. And it was like this, like not being able to, like basically all of the like gross shit that was making me feel not good enough because I was hung up on someone else. It was basically that's what she had taken from me. And that's why I was able to get over him. And she told me she was going to put that into him. And that's how I was going to get him. Like she was going to make him crazy, basically. And I was like, how do I change the deal? Like, I don't want it anymore. I was like, and like, I was being like attacked by flies at this time. Like, and I was like, how do I make it stop? Like, I don't want the deal to be off. I want the deal to be off. And all I heard her say was, "Do your best." And that was it. And it was done. And I felt like it never manifested. And I've just focused on my career and myself and like elevating myself. But that's what she said. Do your best.
You have another question. I hope I'm not saying this wrong. Stephanie Gentala. Wow, I said it right. Stephanie Gentala wants to know, she's trying to distinguish between information and imagination when it comes to trusting my intuition, her psychic intuition. Do you have any tips or thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it depends on where you are psychically the most gifted. For people who are clairaudient, who feel like they hear messages or like they're getting impressions in their mind, it can be hard to decipher like your internal monologue from a guide's. So what I recommend doing is meditating. First of all, meditation is the best way that you can distinguish your energy from another energy, because it's really about sort of tapping into the subtleness. But go into a meditation, talk to your guides, whether or not you are aware of who you're talking to, just say it, they're listening. And say, "Hey, if you're going to talk to me, can you use a different voice?" And I'm not trying to set anyone up here for schizophrenia, but this is what I do. This is what I do, where I'm just like, "Hey, please just use another voice." Also, like, if you feel like it's coming out from outside of you, like I'll sometimes feel like an energy over here when I'm having information fed into my mind. Things that I also recommend doing is just asking your guides for clarity. Show me clarity for this situation in a dream, setting an intention before you go to bed, and then trying to remember what you dreamt about the next day. So I would also, if you feel like you are getting a sign or some sort of psychic download, I will always say, if I'm not sure, I'll say, I think that you're trying to tell me this. If so, please show me a sign of confirmation. And, just keep your eyes open for what you feel like is a sign of confirmation. And that's sort of like how you can start to scratch at that surface. But really, when it comes down to understanding your intuition, you just have to meditate. I just don't see any way around it. And it doesn't have to be a sit down meditation. It can be a trance meditation. If you're a person who works out or goes for walks, setting an intention where I'm going to clear my mind, I'm going to connect with my guides, but I have to be moving. Trance meditation is just as valid as lay down, sit down meditation.
And Greg pointed that out a lot. He said, a lot of people complain about not being able to meditate, and his answer is a great answer. He's like, just sit down, shut the fuck up, and close your eyes.
Yeah.
And that will start your meditation. So we are at the half-hour mark, just so you know,
okay,
of our first show. We're already halfway in. So we have a couple questions that we need to answer that were sent in. We're going to try to, we don't know if we can get all of these answered tonight, but remember, if they don't get answered tonight, we're going to keep doing this, and we will bring them up next week. But we can try to do one or two before we get into the next topic.
Yeah, definitely. So this one was a write-in from Instagram from @clit.couture. So excellent name, by the way. And it says, hey there, beautiful people. Here's my question. Hearing about Hecate became a common theme in my life. I asked her to send me black animals as a sign if I was worthy enough to work with her. She did that. I'll include a picture. You'll love it. She did include a picture, by the way.
Yeah, the rooster.
Yeah.
Rooster.
She asks, what are your favorite resources to learn about her for beginners? I'm getting familiar with her energy and meditation, but this triple earth sign would also like some tangible reference like books or website I can go back to. Basically, what she also said with that story was that she works in downtown Phoenix, and one day, randomly, there was a black cock in a chicken, not a vibrator, but just in the break room, and she sent us
a picture of it.
There was a black hawk in the middle of her work. That's crazy. That's a pretty intense sign. What do you think about all of that?
There is a lot of great work out there right now. I mean, Hecate is my life. I worship her 100%. I don't push that on other people. People can work with her however they feel. There is great modern information on Hecate. There is great written information on her from the PGM, right? Some of the best authors that you can get for classic information today I would definitely say Sarita de Est. She's a great woman. She runs a couple Facebook groups that you can check out when you look. I'll get the links and send them later. But Sarita de Est, she's got a great book called The Liminal Hecate. So it's just The Liminal Hecate. And that's one of my favorite books. Another great book that she does is The Rite of Her Sacred Fires, which is actually a modern holy day for those that work with Hecate. And it's during the full moon in May every year. And it's a time when we all get around and perform a service to her universally. Try to do it in the same time frames. But she wrote a book on that. For modern perspectives, I would say if you're wanting something from a baby standpoint, and I don't mean that in a negative way, because these are great books, all of them. But if you really want to take your time and start to learn, Cindy Brennan is a great author. She does Keeping Her Keys, and she also did Hecate's Garden. That we have all these at the store, by the way. But Cindy Brennan writes some great books for people that are just starting out. I think it's a great foundation. My personal favorites, definitely. My teacher is Jason Miller. He has a great series that's 7 months long. It's quite a commitment, but it really has you working with Hecate every day. The course usually starts right around solstice or like a week before, and it's called The Sorcery of Hecate. You can check that out at strategicsorcery.net, I believe. His name is Jason Miller. He's got a bunch of great books. The one that I turn everybody onto for getting your hands dirty and getting in there and working with Hecate is Protection and Reversal Magic. It's a great book. I went through that book in 6 hours. I loved it. For people that are more advanced that want to work with her more in a Klipothic kind of dark perspective, there is another amazing author named Mark Allen Smith out of Spain. He has an amazing website called primalcraft.com. That's primalcraft.com. He's got 7 books that he has out, and they're all working with her. But it's in a lot of the Brimo perspectives, or the Vrimi perspectives, actually, which is how you would say it. But they're 7 books. They're a bit pricey, but they're well worth it. But they're definitely for people that are a little more advanced, that also have backgrounds in various forms of witchcraft and ceremonial magic, because it does come up. But there's a lot of great work out there. Hecate's Cauldron is a website that you can find. I think it's hecatescauldron.org or .net. I'm not sure which, but that's a good beginner space. And also go back to Facebook. I know a lot of people don't like to, but Facebook has some great groups. I am one of the moderators on Circle of Hecate, which is another great Facebook group.
Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah, group's a good idea, because then you can sort of just bounce
Then you can
questions.
start asking questions to people out there.
And then also, too, just like you said, like Deknon, the new moon, leaving an offering at the crossroads. That's a good way, too, to just like start out leaving her things, too. Did other questions come in, or should I go off these ones?
Wizard Walker
Ooh.
asked, do practicing intentions during full moons help? I feel like I've missed part of the statement and the question.
Maybe like setting.
Is this in connection with what you were talking about with psychic development?
Well,
or is this about spellcraft? I'm not sure.
Well, I think that intention, I think that intentions generally, when we're talking about like full and new moons and stuff, I feel like that's usually like some sort of a ritual for something that you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, so I am, as well as being a seasoned witch at this juncture in my life, I'm also still very much a ceremonial magician. I only work in the dark moon because it's my time of worship to my goddess. I don't rely on the moons to give me times in which to do my work. Mm-hmm. Again, this is 40 plus years of experience speaking, so it might be different for someone who is newer. So working with the phase of moon, obviously when the moon is waxing, it's in a growing phase. Therefore, this is going to be bringing good things into your life, things you want.
So from new to full.
Yeah, new to full. And then when you're in your waning, this is where you're removing. And your full is really, to me, always been about connecting with the earth and with the goddess in the full aspect. But I don't really go there for spellcraft.
So
I go back to planetary magic for spell work.
I mean, I feel like I use a planetary. Sometimes I kind of will take from different systems, but I do use a planetary system sometimes, and I take an astrological approach to a lot of my spell crafting because I want to know, if I'm working with planetary energies, I want to know what's happening. Like if I'm trying to move forward on something, but Mars is having not a great aspect with Saturn, like then, I might want to try to do like a road opener spell so that I'm not being bombarded by like restriction. So I think that you can work with the phases of the moon and, get more
Sure you can.
intricate with it.
Very new.
Yeah, but it's like for me, that's like an astrological approach where I'm basically like mapping out what's happening in the sky and like how I can direct my energy based off of what's happening. A lot of people, a lot of like the Instagram witches will say new moon is for setting intentions because it's like Sal said, it grows, and full moons are for releasing because then the moon gets smaller. But I always feel so energized during a full moon that I think of it as harvest a lot of the time.
Absolutely energized in the dark moon. And there you go. See, so it is going to react. But remember, when I talk about Hecate, this doesn't necessarily have to be, I don't have to discuss her as far as spell work goes. Hecate is my religion. I am absolutely at the point in my life where every night when I go to bed, I have a 10-minute ritual, and every morning when I get up, I have a 3-minute ritual twice a day. Not unlike my father, who is Catholic and gets on his knees every morning and every night. Okay? I just happen to worship Hecate. She is my religion. So when I go to the dark moon, I'm getting that. So I'm getting all that off the dark moon. The full moon, it's cool. It's great. It feels nice. It lights up the space, But that doesn't really work for me as much. I mean, it's great to be there, and it's nice to see the sliver as it gets more narrow.
Yeah.
But I'm into the dark moon. But if I want to do spellcraft, it's going to be straight up planetary magic, and I do not. We're different people. I do not look at the astrological chart. If I looked at the astrological chart, it wouldn't mean any more to me than a map to Denny's or something. I don't use it. I am a magician and a witch, and I enforce my intent by using products that correlate to the planetary energy that I am trying to harness to bend the outcome to my favor. That's what I do. And I do that through planets.
Yeah, and I like to do that too. I think that I just am drawn to the planetary positions, and like I feel like when I'm doing a spell, I'm looking at the currents and like which current I'm going to ride, and like which current might need like a couple, like, a little bit of help. Like right now, Mars is in retrograde, so I have a Mars candle that I'm working with whenever my energy feels low, just to like connect with Mars and try to also like, give some energy to Mars to help it out a little bit.
All right, we are coming up on 7:45 in about 2 minutes.
Okay.
It's 15 minutes out, so I think we should
get to divination.
If you want to talk about divination, I think now would be the time. And if we can get 5 minutes in the end to get one more question. If not, I'm sorry, we will get to your questions next week. It seems like firing them off to us here is making it a lot easier. But we do not mean any disrespect if we don't. We're still trying to figure out the grid of how this whole thing is working.
Yeah, my Instagram live feed looks crazy, so we're going to have to fix that later. But
okay, so you decided to talk about divination.
I thought you did. We decided together. I think, it doesn't matter. Okay, so, I mean, obviously divination's a big part of my life because I'm a professional psychic, and that's a form of divination. But there are so many different things that you can look at when it comes to divination. Like tarot cards are a tool for divination. I believe meditation to be a tool that you can use, dream work even, scrying, that sort of a thing. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. But I'm curious, because as someone who doesn't necessarily do a lot of divination as far as I know, like where are you at in terms of what you think on the subject?
I think divining works. I definitely do. But we got to look at divination doesn't mean always get an answer. Divining can also be a way of communing with the spirit that you want to work with to get broader answers on things. And especially in the system that I'm working in now, again, with Hecate, not to keep bringing her up, but, when I work with her, I can put her in the mandala that I work in without going any deeper than that. And I can commune with her directly. And that is a form of divination through achieving what I'm trying to do in the mandala, so I can then commune and get my message. So that I definitely do. I do that more than anyone knows, more than my wife even knows, who knows more about me than anyone. But my time with my goddess is my time to talk to her. So that's a form of divination for me. But as far as the tools and the chingaderas of witchcraft, I would definitely say fire scrying is my favorite.
Oh, okay.
I definitely, and my students have done that with me. There's been a couple of people that have taken some classes with me where I broke out fire scrying, and where you start reading the flames as it separates from the body of the other flame, and then you'll start seeing vision in those, and that's kind of my kick.
Okay, I've never done fire scrying, so can you explain it?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're looking for imagery. Like when I divine, I'm not going in with, I need to divine an answer so I can figure out how to get my car payment this month. It's not like that.
No.
Okay, it's,
What do I need to know?
I set myself up, I set up a cauldron, and the flame cooks, and when the flame cooks and bounces, it separates and it starts taking shapes. And the key to this, and I shared this with a class last time I taught pre-COVID, and a lot of people say, don't bring technology into the magic circle. Well, I'm going to tell you to do it anyways. Bring in your phone, create the fire coming out of the cauldron, and as it starts burning up, take your phone out and just start going click, 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 click.
Yeah.
And then you stop, and then you'll start seeing shapes that it'll create, and then you start reading those.
Yeah.
That is one of the ways I do it for sure. And
Okay.
like I'll get whole, like I had Hecate come out of the flame once. I had eyes popping up in flames.
That's pretty
looking.
supernatural.
That's all. So there's a lot of things I do, but that would be the one way to do it. And the key to that, and I usually don't give out this information except for in class, but the best way to create a good fire pot is we want to be safe. You want to have a fire extinguisher ready. You want to have it in an area that there's no curtains, there's nothing hanging around it that's going to catch on fire. We don't want it draping off your altar, okay? A nice kitchen table with some kind of cookie sheet down. Get yourself a bowl that can retain flame, like a small cast iron cauldron.
Yeah.
Or something
even
of
like
that
a
effect.
cooking pot if
Or
you don't.
a fondue pot.
Yeah.
Take that, and then you're going to go ahead, and Rebecca is going to laugh at this because I told her the secret for her group. You take Epsom salts, and you lay a bed of Epsom salt down on the bottom of the pot. And then you have to be sure and get 91% isopropyl alcohol. Pour it in till it just covers the Epsom salt. Click a lighter, and just the gas alone escaping will ignite. And then that will start dancing. And as long as you don't knock that pot over, the fire is just going to start licking it and raging. And then eventually it will just burn out. Now, when you're doing this, the key thing to have also is something that is a lot bigger than the circumference of the pot. So if you need to, you can just cover it up, and immediately when you close off the oxygen, it shuts off.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's safe, set that flame up and just let it start dancing, and then start shooting pictures of it.
Do you ever use any sort of herbs or throw any herbs into the
Nope.
fire or anything like
Straight
that?
Epsom salt.
Just straight Epsom salt? Do you get into a meditative state or call a circle or anything like that, or do you just kind of run?
It's in ritual space, definitely.
Yeah.
I'll definitely call my guardians. I'll call quarters if I'm doing low magic, for sure. I'll call quarters. But the thing is, like when you have a temple in your home, like an honest to God temple, like where you go to worship, kind of like the temple here at the shop, that is permanently erected. I don't have to go ahead and do circle every time because it's constantly there.
Right.
But if you don't have that, yes, you should set up quarter, call your quarters, cut in a circle, get in a good space so things don't come in. You protect yourself and then do your work.
If people don't have the luxury of a full-blown room, do you think that they can accomplish that with just like a corner of their room, or do you think it needs to be something that has like walls and separation?
Ideally, you want a room, but necessity is the mother of invention, right? And yes, if you're in your room and you're living with roommates and you need that space, then yeah, by all means, try to set up your altar in a space where nothing's going to get in the way that will catch on fire. That's really important. Safety is always important. I have to keep stressing that. But once you have that up, where's your altar sitting? Ideally, it should be north to northeast, especially if you're working in low magic. If you're working in high magic or ceremonial magic, then it's in the east. But in witchcraft, it would sit north to northeast.
Why those directions?
Because it's earthbound. And the east is also the place of intellect and knowledge. So if you're working northeast, very much when you've got that, like when you cut a circle in Wicca or in witchcraft, a lot of times you will see that the main altar, the way I explain it is imagine the face of a clock, right? And let's say that the 1 o'clock number is the east, right?
Okay.
No, make this easier. Sorry about that. 12 o'clock would be the north. 3 o'clock would be the east.
Okay.
So like 1:30, where 1:30 would sit, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Think about where the hour hand would sit if it was 1:05. You want to come in and see what I'm saying? It comes in a quarter of the way in on the face of the clock, because you want to be able to ideally have your altar set up so you can move around it,
right,
to do work. So you've got it sitting northeast at what I say would be the 1 o'clock hand position.
Got it.
If that makes sense. I don't know if that became too convoluted and weird, but
no, I think that makes sense.
But yeah, so it's usually north or northeast. North because obvious, it's the earth, and we're in the earth realm. And when you're working in witchcraft, you're working in this sphere.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that like when it comes to forms of divination too, a lot of it will probably be trial and error before people are able to figure out exactly what it is that works for them. And I think that someone who, because there are things like, I can't remember what they're called. I think they're called spirit boxes, but it's like you put on headphones and it like very quickly like shuffles through different radio stations, and like you'll pick up different words that like you supposedly can ask a question, and then like
what is that?
It's called a spirit box.
I don't know.
It's like you really want to like have it with headphones.
Where
and
do
like
you buy it?
You can buy them online. It's basically just like a tool that goes through radio stations really quickly. And so when you're listening to it, it sounds like, but like words come through and you'll be like,
And you're divining that?
Well, because you can ask a question and then like supposedly that like whatever you're communicating with, like this is where technology can be a part of your divination. Like whatever you're communicating with can like come through and sort of start to give you information. So like if you need a more literal form of divination, like that's a good way to do it. But or even if you're clairaudient, which is the ability to hear messages. But if you're someone who's clairvoyant, then you would want to look into scrying or fire gazing or dream work. So I think that like identifying what your own sort of psychic abilities like are in terms of what your strengths are, like will help you sort of figure out which forms of divination work best for you.
Gotcha.
Do you ever take like notes or anything when you're doing any sort of divinatory work? Because I know that for you, it's mostly about having a conversation with your goddess, but do you ask for counsel and do you take notes? Like, how do you?
No. I just retain what I do in there with her at this juncture. I really have to, I go back to him now a couple times, but Jason Miller's course is absolutely next level shit. It's really good, and it teaches you so much stuff, and working with so many different types of energy. It's by no means a Hellenistic system. It's not, when I say Hellenistic, that it's not purist Greek PGM only, stuff that comes from that time frame. It's a modern perspective, but it's just really, really good work.
I think another thing that's interesting to look at, for me coming from an astrological point of view, typically if you're looking at things like divination, a full moon is going to be a time when things are illuminated. So people sometimes feel more psychically sensitive. Whereas like the dark moon is going to be more about like your internal and things that you need to sort of like figure out about yourself. But even if you want to, like, not on a full moon or not on a new moon, if you want to sort of like follow like where the moon is, it changes signs every 2.5 days. Anytime that the moon is in a water sign, you're probably going to be empathically more tuned in. And because water signs are the most psychic of the signs, because of it's just like it's fluid and it's the exchange of emotion, that's going to be a really good time to tap into emotional situations or try to channel people. Like, that's when channeling people and sharing basically emotions with other people is going to be good. So asking about people, I would recommend like Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio when the moon's there. Anytime the moon is in Pisces, I would keep a dream journal, because Pisces is ruled by Neptune, which rules the dreamland, like which rules the dream world. And so anytime, if you do follow astrology, that the moon is making a positive aspect to Neptune, that's going to be a time where it's just the energy is prime for you to have prophetic dreams. And I recommend going into the dream with a dream recall stone next to your bed and asking, and I would use like quartz or blue howlite are both good, but I would cleanse the quartz between each time you use it, and ask your guides, like, I intend to remember my dream tonight, and then ask something like, hey, could one of you introduce yourselves to me in a dream?
We're getting cut.
Okay.
So we've got 4 minutes. A person asked a question, and then a person asked another question on psychic stuff. Very quickly, I'm going to throw in a 1 minute, so we can still have 2 minutes to say goodbye to everybody, and then we'll get to the next psychic question about how to figure out your gifts next week to Seeker 773. As far as what high and low magic is, I can't give you that in the next 5 minutes, but I can tell you this. This is a view. And by something being low magic, it does not mean it's less than or not as good as. Okay? Low magic means it's here in this time, in this plane. Witchcraft. Now, I'm not talking about Wicca. I'm talking about the act of witchcraft and spellcraft is a way of satiating the need and urge by doing spell work to cause change. We want this to affect our lives here so we can move forward. When you work in macrocosmic work or high magic, this is starting to get a lot more philosophical. You're starting to work with the Tree of Life, Kabbalah, and really moving up into that. I would like to actually come back at that next week. I will address that much deeper, because that was a really crappy answer. So we have 2 minutes, and I want to say to my co-host, it was awesome.
I'm so glad we're doing this.
Jackie Blue's out there working the messages for me, and we've got Matt and John,
our shadow people.
The shadow people. They're killing it. We want to thank Scarlett and Daniel.
Yes.
They did this amazing outro music, and a song. The song is beautiful. Daniel wrote it, and Scarlett did all the singing on it. Rebecca for the awesome photography.
Yes.
Come see us at the Crooked Path. You see where we are now. You need to start sending us questions that you have.
Samhain is next week. So Samhain questions specifically.
Yeah, Samhain questions for sure. And this was a great first show, guys.
Yeah, it was great. You can find... Should we do tags now?
Yeah, let's tag. You got 60 seconds.
All right. You can find me on Instagram at Rainbow Glitter Star. I have a new podcast out where I have had amazing interviews with people like Cassandra Peterson, who plays Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and Bridget Marquardt, and just amazing astrologers. So the Glittercast is available on all major podcasting platforms. And my website, rainbowglitterstar.com. I also, on my podcast, Witch Doctorate, just released astrology and tarot scopes for Scorpio season, which started today.
You can always get me at the Crooked Path. Obviously, you can find us at the Crooked Path _LA on Instagram, Crooked Path Occult on Facebook. Come in the store at 2020 West Magnolia Boulevard in the lovely city of Burbank, California. Thank you, guys. Vote.
Oh, and at
Have
Betwixt
awesome
the
week.
Shadows.
And Betwixt the Shadows.
Betwixt the Shadows
is
on
our new
Instagram.
Please start stacking some names on Instagram, guys. Let's get that thing growing, and we'll get some stuff out there. And, I think in the future we'll be doing some giveaways. But other than that,
yeah, definitely.
Renee, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody that was our audience for the first time. And bring your friends, and let's keep this moving. Have a wonderful week. Be safe.
Bye.